Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. Got a very special episode talking to Amanda Atwell, Dave Campbell's Texas football in the building. Very excited to just talk about a bunch of things with Amanda. We're gonna have a good time here. So tap in the comments. Make sure you subscribe, hit that like button. We're trying to grow the platform. Y'all know what it is. You know when you take attendance on this channel by hitting that like button. So make sure you do that. And I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, BUSR, busr.com/fanatic. Hit that Sports 100 FP promo code, matching all deposits, 100% match on all initial deposits within the first 24 hours on my busr.com/fanatic site. Heisman bets, conference odds, all sorts of stuff going on. Take advantage on BUSR, excellent customer service. Amanda, welcome to Fanatic Perspective. Thanks for joining me today.
Of course, so happy to be here.
This is awesome. And this is crazy season for you.
Yeah.
So just in terms of the legend of Dave Campbell's Texas football, you've now been there for about almost a year, coming up on a year at Dave Campbell?
9 months or so. I'm crossing my 9-month threshold. I'm getting into my first football. Well, I was at the tail end. I joined at the tail end of football season last year, so I got to see the state championship and help run that. So that was exciting, but now I get to do it from start to finish. So it should be fun.
So talk to me about a lot of these teams right now in camp. You guys are producing a ton of content, trying to get these magazines out, especially with lead times and challenges all over the industry, but also the global presence, digital presence, all these things going on. How crazy is your days like right now? I feel like it's probably a whirlwind for you guys.
It's pretty wild, but we have a pretty good team and we try to calm each other down pretty well. But between the magazine being there's a lot of people that are probably like, where the heck is the magazine? Because they still aren't really on a ton of grocery store shelves. They should be hitting shelves this week and next week. And if they're not there, you can always subscribe and get it in your mailbox in 2 days. But aside from that, yeah, we're prepping for season. Our editorial team's pumping out a ton of content of high school football. They do a podcast every single day. So a lot of content. Dave Campbell's has grown drastically since the beginning days. And we're actually going to be at we're going to be at about 250 games plus in the fall. Just in the regular season, as far as marketing activations goes, and as like awards we're giving out, as well as our editorial team is going to be covering a lot of games. So it should be a very exciting year. I think we're doing more than we've ever done before, just continuing to grow, and it's a good time to be at Dave Campbell's.
The more games, the more exposure out there for those high schools, especially people that are seeking exposure for their kids, for their high school football programs. One of the things we preach here on this channel, and I've tried to build this up over the years, is on Friday nights, those of you who follow us, especially here in the state of Texas, go and support your local high school football team and what those kids put on, the bands, the whole atmosphere. It's one of the most unique experiences. Amanda, I was telling you, I'm from Washington, D.C. originally, and I was still buying Dave Campbell's Texas football magazines, when I was 11, 12 years old. I remember Cedric Benson being on the cover, just these iconic players that have become NFL legends and all sorts of things. And it started from the exposure that you guys give these programs. We just lost Dave back in December, and he was, what he's done for football in the state of Texas is iconic. Can you kind of talk to the transition in media? Because before it used to be like really built around really the magazine. And if you guys haven't been to the website or the app or like following the schedule of where you guys are going to be, can you talk to kind of the transition in media of just the change from print to being all over the place in digital?
Well, people, especially people my age, ingest their media a whole lot differently than they used to. I can't remember the last time I physically bought a magazine, and maybe I shouldn't say that, but I ingest most of my news online, and Dave Campbell's has done a really good job at adapting to that, and then also recognizing that there's so many companies out there that want to find a way to also highlight these kids and sponsor the good things they're doing and award them for it and give them scholarships. So Dave Campbell's really works to connect companies with high schools and local communities in that aspect. So I think that's a really cool part of how the company has evolved as well. And it's just all built on the brand. Everybody knows what the Bible of Texas football is, and that's the only way that we're able to do this is because of Dave's legacy. So it's really awesome just how it's evolved. We have so many podcasts, and people tune in every single day to this stuff. It's like it's an addiction. You can't get enough of it. But I mean, it pays my bills, so I can't complain. And I love it too. It's Texas high school football. It's like it's hard to describe. It's like nothing else. I also covered high school football in Louisiana and for my first job out of college, and I have to say there's no comparison.
What's unique too to that is we always hear, again, growing up outside of Texas, you hear about Texas, you see the movies like Friday Night Lights and things that go on in terms of the media and the folklore of Texas football. And to now be here and immersed in it and the coverage and the stories and the ability to get to know a lot of these kids and get to know a lot of these coaches, it must be pretty rewarding for you just in a short period of time. I'm very excited for you to have your first full, high school football season. I'm sure it's, while it's very tiring, it's also probably very, very rewarding for you.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, I've been working with high school football for the last 5 years in my job, just being a sports anchor. If you know anything about local sports media, they really focus on covering those high school kids. So the benefit for me transitioning to Dave Campbell's is I was so experienced in that aspect. I've covered high school football at the smallest levels in the tiny 1A towns in Amarillo up to DFW, the biggest schools that you can imagine. So it's just crazy how much these tiny towns, like the entire town shuts down. You can't even go and get a milkshake at Dairy Queen when there's a football game going on. And it's just that's how important it is to these towns. And yeah, it is super rewarding, especially when you highlight a kid who isn't like he's at a 2A school. He's not used to getting that kind of coverage that a kid at maybe Allen or South Lake Carroll's going to get.
Right.
So just really giving them that platform and being able to do that as well on the Dave Campbell stage. It's just been really great.
So so you are a University of Texas graduate, correct?
Yes.
So
Yes.
hook 'em, hook 'em, hook 'em, hook 'em. Hopefully everybody can see that. And
Everybody in my family is a University of Texas grad. We have a cat named Bevo, so it runs very deep.
that's awesome.
He
That's
is
awesome. Are you originally from the DFW area before you went to Texas, or what was your journey to Texas coming out of high school?
So I took a little complicated journey to Texas. So I wanted to go there originally, but I played soccer growing up. I played club soccer and I was getting recruited at smaller schools. I wasn't quite D1. I mean, I was recruited to lesser D1 schools. I knew if I tried to go to Texas, I would have to walk on and sit the bench. And that's just not really what I wanted to do. So I got into Texas out of high school, but my parents were like, take this scholarship elsewhere. And so I took a scholarship actually and went to Centenary College of Louisiana for a year and a half, which is a tiny, tiny private school in Shreveport. I blew out my knee 3 times and then
Wow.
just kind of decided, you know what? I really want to do journalism and I want to go to UT. I want to do what I've always wanted to do. So I transferred mid sophomore year and ended up graduating from UT close to on time, which was impressive considering the transfer process from private to public. But yeah, I grew up in Fort Worth originally. So I am from the area. I wasn't born in Texas. I was actually born in Kansas, but I got here as fast as
Wow.
I could. I lived in Kansas for 2 years before my family moved here. So I have no memories of anywhere but Texas.
Yeah, you're a Texan.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one thing I love about Texas, though, in general, is they're very quick to adopt us, right? And the it's very, very, inclusive and communal. So I agree. Having, many of you guys know me. I'm from the East Coast, Washington D.C. area, so you guys know my journey getting here. October will actually be officially 10 years for me
Oh, wow.
living in Texas, 9 of which were spent living in Austin, Texas. So now I'm up here in the Dallas Fort Worth area as well. So that's been a bit of a transition, but learning the state and everything, and very rich, obviously, here in the DFW with high school football. Post UT, having a sports journalism coming from a program like UT, extremely impressive. You had, I knew you from TV. So this is also, I also feel like I have a celebrity on the channel because, I've seen you on ABC and all these big channel affiliates as a sports anchor.
Mhm.
And you're very young. Why the career transition from a career like that
Mhm.
to working at Dave Campbell's Texas Football?
I don't wanna go too much in depth on it because there are a lot of reasons as to why there's a
Sure.
lot of people leaving TV right now for a lot of the reasons that you see people leaving jobs everywhere. It's just the industry is changing and some of the companies just aren't adopting as well as they should, which leads to less profits, which leads to less jobs, which leads to less money. And I just kind of could foresee more of a future in just building a career at a place like Dave Campbell's, whereas in TV, I kind of had hit a stall where it's like I could go to Austin, but I'm not really getting a pay raise if I go to Austin. It's a very weird time for TV news. And I kind of adopted the mindset, and I think this is applicable to just about anything you do in life. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean it necessarily serves you as a career anymore.
Mhm.
And so even though I knew I was good at what I did, it wasn't really serving me in the way I needed to as my means of income. So I just decided, and I also wanted to be back in DFW. If you know anything about DFW, the local sports or the local TV affiliates here are incredibly competitive. You can probably count on two hands how many sports jobs are available in DFW at the local station. So you're competing against about 400 other people for one job, which I'm a competitive person and I think I could win that. But at the same time, it's like, 9 to 5 is nice. I'd like to be able to know I can get home and make dinner at the end of the day and go see my parents if I need to. And I still get to work in sports. So that's also kind of a good part of it as well.
Sounds like you found your peace, right?
Yes.
And having, still being able to leverage your talents, being able to be a part of the mix and have all of those things and those interactions like we've been talking about this fall is going to be crazy for you. But at the same token, proximity to family, financial stability, all of these things that are very, very important, especially for those of us who are all trying to grow our careers in our 20s and our 30s. Many of you people out there watching this right now are in similar boats looking to make similar decisions.
Mhm.
I attended Howard University and I was there for technically broadcast journalism, but I really wanted to do print journalism.
Mhm.
That right there ages me, right? Like
Mhm.
that I was running the sports stuff on my high school newspaper. I wanted to be a writer. Like that
Mhm.
was where I saw myself. And I, eventually thought, maybe I could be on ESPN and things of that sort. Life circumstances happen, right?
Mhm.
And I end up heading to the tech world and sales. And that's where I've built my career, not even in journalism, but because of avenues like YouTube and TikTok and Twitter, I've been able to try to rekindle that dream, if you will.
Mhm.
And that's really the genesis of my own platform here at Fanatic Perspective
Mhm.
is still having that itch
Mhm.
that I wasn't able to fulfill in college. And I think that speaks to what you were talking about in terms of just traditional media and adapting to how we are all consuming things. Folks, we have a lot of people that watch this channel that are 15, and above and things of that sort. The way they consume media is very, very different.
Mhm.
And so I see you guys over there, what you're doing at Dave Campbell's and just your own personal brand, Amanda, like TikTok and YouTube and Dave Campbell's and apps. It's very, very interesting in terms of the trend with
Mhm.
sports media right now.
Yeah. And you obviously know journalism, the traditional format of going to a local TV station. You start out small. I started out in Shreveport, Louisiana, eventually went to Amarillo, which is even smaller than Shreveport, Louisiana, to get a start in sports. It does not pay well. People think because you're on TV, you're making all this money. I had to work a side job at Ann Taylor Loft to be able to afford nice clothes to wear on television.
Wow.
I mean, you're looking at under 30K for your first 3 years in the industry. And in this economy, it's not sustainable. And I ended up in McAllen, and I was actually the first female sports director in South Texas at a TV station down there. And so I climbed the ladder and I ended up getting better pay. But at the same time, it's just, I went from down here to just like kind of up here. And it's like, at this point in my career, I want to be up here.
Right.
So it's just a lot of big media companies have not figured out how to adapt to the way younger people are ingesting information. Like my last TV station, they don't have a TikTok. They haven't made that transition, and it's a matter of, are they going to make that transition and really hone in these new media forms and figure out how to deliver information to a different audience, or are they going to take the same route as newspapers? So it'll be an interesting thing to watch for years to come. But at the same time, leaving the industry, I feel like it gave me back the control to be able to do, like you do, this YouTube on the side. It gave me the control to be able to do the things I want to do that fulfill me and not have to rely on them for my income. Because if you're relying on something for your income and you feel like you're not succeeding, you can get to where you resent it at the same time. And I just didn't want to get
100%.
resent to something I grew up being very passionate about.
I completely agree. And that passion, you obviously those of you watching this can see Amanda's passion clear as day. As we transition, because there's a few more things I want to ask you about. One of them being your alma mater and this football team that keeps me up at night, Mr. Steve Sarkisian, now in year two. Uh, you have a pretty good outlook just all over the Big 12, and I saw you actually comment today about Tech at
Yeah,
Texas
I
Tech.
covered Tech for 3 years, so I am very familiar with the Red Raiders. And I have a fun fact that I tell every single Texas Tech fan every chance I get about my full football seasons I covered Texas Tech. They did not win a single home game against a team other than Kansas, or a single home Big 12 team against Big 12 game against a team other than Kansas the entire time I was there. They lost every single home game I went to
Wow.
for 3 years straight. I think they won the last game I was at. I was like, okay, I broke the curse. For a while, the people in Texas Tech media would joke like, oh, Amanda's back. The curse is still here. We're not going to win. I was like, sorry. That's what you get for letting the Longhorn in your press box.
Well, make sure you head up there. We're playing at Tech this year, so we're
My
gonna need
birthday
you.
weekend. I might just have to head up there. I don't know. I might Texas, Lubbock. I'm glad I'm not covering them anymore because Lubbock kind of scares me at this point because they were rabid fans back then. It's just I'd be afraid to wear burnt orange up there, honestly.
It was amplified. I know this is completely off topic. It was amplified when Chris Beard went back there. That was crazy.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I actually when I was in Amarillo, I dated a guy who was in the Texas Tech Law School. He was UT undergrad, so we're okay there. But I was there the night that they won the game to send them to the national championship game in basketball. When all the Lime scooters got lit on fire, they were flipping cars in the street. And I was just like, it's a different level of insanity. And I understand that level of insanity when you win a championship,
Sure.
but to just make it there and be lighting stuff on fire in the street, it's just
I mean, some people don't know how to have nice things.
no, I mean, they're in love it, so.
Shout out to my Aunt Kathy. She's over there. She's one of the Texas Tech big money donors out there, and she talks trash. She's one of those people that I hear from her nonstop when Tech's up, but when Tech is down, the phone is not in service.
So you didn't hear from her when we had put up 70 on them last year?
Not for a couple weeks. I had to do a wellness check.
Are you alive? Are you okay?
I had to call Uncle Richard. It was crazy. It was crazy. I had to call the kids, grandkids. sending DMs. Hey, can you check in? Just a
She
text.
she okay?
She is okay.
Okay.
Oh, she was okay after Chris Beard and after they beat Texas twice in basketball. All of a sudden, I'm getting FaceTime calls. All
First
service is great. You know how it is.
Heck yeah. No, it's all in good fun, and I mean, I have a lot of good friends that went to Texas Tech, and it's good fun with us, but there's some very irrational Texas Tech fans, as there are in any fan base, but
Oh, absolutely. We all have our crazies, and we all have our different levels of messiness. I feel
yes.
like depending, we all know well and good what, how toxic things can get
Mhm.
sometimes in Austin. But getting back to Austin, what are your expectations for Texas football in terms of year 2 under Steve Sarkisian?
I'll tell you a little bit about my background in growing up as a fan under Texas football to kinda give you an insight on my perspective here. So I grew up thinking Texas didn't know how to lose football games. So I grew up in the Vince Young, in the McCoy era, and then all of a sudden I get to college, Mac Brown's fired, Charlie Strong's in. And I was there the entire Charlie Strong era. And so that was rough to watch. And so based
That's
off
tough.
and attending school during that time, it kind of really tempered my expectations, which I think is good if I'm going into a sports broadcasting career, how to learn how to be a realist about your team as well. So as far as Steve Sarkisian, year 1 was obviously not what we wanted it to be, but at the same time, I think a lot of the players that were there in year 1 were very much bought into Tom Herman. So when Tom Herman's gone, that Tom Herman was very much a player's coach. Not to say that Steve Sarkisian isn't, but he really needed to get a group in there that all has a common goal, all has a common mindset. And with there's 35 new players on the roster.
Yep. Mhm.
That's insane. And so I think my expectation in year 2, what I would be happy with, what would show growth is an 8-win season. Even a 7-win season shows growth. I think an 8-win season really shows you're actually moving in the right direction. But I think with the lack of depth that we have, I mean, he's building the depth. It's just he's building it in the right places. It just takes a couple of years to develop. You're not going to have a deep O line after one good recruiting class. And so I think it's going to take at least 1 or 2 more years to get that level of depth that you're going to need to actually compete against a team like Alabama in week 2. And so my expectation, I would be happy with an 8-win season. I would be happy to going back to our exit season with Mac Brown of just, we were living pretty back then and we didn't know
Didn't
it.
realize you
Didn't
didn't
realize,
realize how good
didn't
we
realize
had it.
what was to come.
Mm-mm. It's funny you say 8 wins. Fellow YouTubers, college football nerds out there, they posted their Texas football review today, and they have us going 8-4 in their prediction. And I feel like that's kind of become a baseline number in terms of real, true measured progress. Because I mean, we went 5-7 last year, but in the context of those losses, like you said, the locker room fell apart at the end of the
Mhm.
season. Injuries becomes an issue. Texas started the season 4-1. We have the collapse
It
in
could have
Dallas.
easily been a 9-win season if that
Yeah,
mid-year. I think halftime at OU was just the crux, and it just went if we had at least held on to that win, even if OU had scored so many points, but we had held on to that win, I don't think we would have lost OSU. I don't think we would, because those were all very close games for the most part. I don't think we would have had that complete utter collapse because it was almost like OU killed the spirit of the team.
in a lot of ways. And they couldn't finish. I mean, they still started well. Oklahoma State started well against Baylor, at Baylor.
Mhm.
And both times we saw the same issues in the second half and the team not being able to figure out how to win football games. So that alone, people think, oh, well, Texas has all this talent and all of these things. And I'm not trying to, sour my Texas fans watching
Mhm.
the show by any means. But my message, Amanda, for this fan base has been enjoy the journey.
Mhm.
We're very young. We have, I think, like you said, 35 new guys on the team. I think 57 are going to be freshmen and sophomore out
Mhm.
of the 85-man team. That's a young group. That's
Mhm.
with a second-year coaching staff. But a staff, you know how we are at Texas, we break up with people like nobody's business. And
Mhm.
so for us to really keep majority of this staff in place and have that continuity for the players, Steve's building his culture. You mentioned the young offensive line. When's the last time we emphasized offensive linemen the way this staff has emphasized offensive linemen and just big guys in the trenches in general? It's been a really long time for Texas. So I just feel as though, you know, enjoy the journey, enjoy the process of this, because I think this is a group that can grow and elevate
Mhm.
over the next couple seasons to achieve the goals that we're looking for.
Mhm.
But hey, I'm no person to get in the way of if you guys want to be ahead of schedule as well
Yeah.
and go out there and surprise some people.
I mean, the Big 12 is challenging in some aspects of it, but it's also very winnable. Last season was very winnable. There were a lot of losses that were very winnable games if they could have played the full 4 quarters. And Steve Sarkisian, I feel like he also knows what it takes to win games. He knows what it takes to win games in the SEC as well, which is honestly what we need to prepare for in the future because
And that's what they're building for.
SEC is a whole lot different ballgame than the Big 12. And I'm personally kind of glad we're not making an immediate transition to the SEC because I think we would be turned into pulp if we were playing teams like Arkansas and Alabama in and out. Because I mean,
Oh, don't
obviously,
bring up
we
Arkansas
walked
again.
into Fayetteville last year thinking it would be all okay, and then we were made fools. We were stomped by hogs. It was not pretty. But I think he knows what he's doing, and the recruiting, I have confidence. He knows that he needs to, obviously you want to get those flashy guys, the Bijan Robinsons, the Xavier Worthies, the Quinn Ewers, but they can't do anything if they're not protected. Bijan can't do anything if he's hurt on the sideline because somebody missed a block. So that's I think Steve Sarkisian really understands the importance of that moving forward as well, which I think will be imperative to their success.
100%. You know, Bijan didn't finish the year last year.
Mhm.
He had the elbow injury, and as you said, it was a lot of heavy lifting. We were so top heavy, and once those guys, that volume on their bodies trying to carry the entire program, it's tough. But I'm excited,
Mhm.
Amanda. I love some of the kids that are coming in. Now that you're in this space, you'll probably have even better line of sight to some of the kids that could potentially be at Texas in the next few
Mhm.
years and across the Big 12 and the new look Big 12. So
Mhm.
I think this is just a very exciting time, for you to be in this space, for me to be covering football here on YouTube. Just really, really exciting times.
Mhm.
Last thing I want to get to, as we kind of wrap up here. Do you miss Austin, or are you back home at DFW? Talk to me about that, because I miss Austin. I know how I feel. I
Yeah,
miss Austin.
so I, actually get to go back a good amount because my part of my job with Dave Campbell's is we have a big partnership with the UIL where we run all of their, sponsorship. So I actually go and staff every single state championship, and a lot of them happen to be in Austin, and I go back for, like, a week at a time. Every time I go back, I'm almost kind of like, "Why didn't I move here?" And because I mean, I love DFW, I'm from here. I made a choice to move to Dallas, Fort Worth. I'm from Fort Worth, and Fort Worth and Dallas have very different cultures. If you're from DFW, you kind of know. Fort Worth is synonymous with family, and which is great. But I am 28 and young and do not have a family yet. I have cats. So I kind of wanted to not live in suburbia with the suburban moms and wanted to live in downtown Dallas where there's things to do and places to go, and it's a little bit more similar to Austin. But I feel like Austin just has a certain spirit to it. Dallas feels very corporate in a lot of ways. And Austin just kind of has that spirit of just like, I don't know, there's so many outdoorsy things to do. Everybody's so nice. Dallas, there's just a lot of finance bros, and it's kind of, I don't know. I love Dallas for what it is, but I like Austin more, and I definitely miss it.
I miss not feeling like I lived in a big city in some ways.
Yes. It's almost like if like I would be walking on Lady Bird Lake and I would run into a girl I knew from college in
Right.
Austin, that kind of thing.
It's interesting too, because I felt like it was the perfect size
Mhm,
for me, especially where I was at that point in my life. And I recently bought a house. I'm here in Arlington now. And so I'm right between Fort Worth and Dallas, and you hit it on the head in terms of the differences
Mhm.
between the two. Now, being up here, I do like the contrast between the two, depending
Mhm.
on what I'm looking for.
You want some
Um,
yeehaw, go to Fort Worth. If you
right, right. Hit the
if you wanna go
rodeo up.
clubbing, go to Dallas.
But I also love the access to the football here. It's
Exactly.
amazing.
You can go
It's
to the Campbells
amazing.
from real easy. I mean, there's a lot of really big games played in Dallas. The one, and I'm sure you feel this, but it's like you're in Arlington, takes you 30 to 45 minutes to get just about anywhere. And like you want to go to downtown Dallas, 30-minute Uber. You want to go to downtown Fort Worth, 30-minute Uber. Factor in and people say like, "Oh, Austin's so bad because of the traffic." Even then, it never took me as long as it takes me to get to one from one side of the metroplex to the other. It's just insanely big here, and it's so spread out as well.
I I'm with you though. I still get to go back, and fortunately through Tran and I, we have season tickets to Texas Longhorn games. So that's kind of my ability to go down there and still see friends and interact. So I don't miss it as much as I do when when I go a couple months and not go
Mhm,
down, right? And like you said about lifestyle, like I lived in the Domain in Austin,
mhm,
and it was hella fun, and the ability to get downtown super quick, and
mhm.
shout out to Rainy Street and all the good folks over there, especially Mr.
Oh,
Eisenhower. Shout out to Eisenhower's, who's I know watching this video right now and doing a great job. One of the best bars on Rainy.
yeah.
Quick plug for you. But yeah, I mean, it's the culture. It's that there's a reason why so many people in our age range visit that city. The music is
Mhm,
undefeated there in Austin. So I do miss it, but at least I get a chance to go back just like yourself.
mhm.
And for professionalism, but also professionally, but also personally, and getting
Yeah.
to enjoy ourselves.
I should be going back to a lot of games, and that's another thing that I like about the transition to this job. When I was a weekend sports anchor, I wasn't doing any kind of, going to Texas. I think I have gone to maybe 2 Texas games over the past 5 years, and so now I can go to just about anyone I want to, which it's really nice to be able to actually be a fan again because I missed being a psychopath on Saturdays. So, I'm pumped to be able to do that again and actually go back and enjoy games and not have to cover them. 'Cause it was very hard when I was reporting on them to try to emotionally detach from it, and going
Right.
on TV after that OU game was rough. It was not I was not well.
When you go through an experience like that, it's like a few days.
It was a couple weeks for me. I was mad for a while.
Oh, y
And once we went down against OSU, I was like, "I'm just not watching this anymore. I can't do it. I'm sick." It just
I feel bad too because you were there during dark times, like one of the
yeah,
darkest periods.
and poor Charlie Strong's daughter was in my sorority. Loved her to death, but man, I can't even
Mhm.
imagine what it was like to be her on some of those terrible after I was graduated by the time we lost to Kansas first time around. I can't imagine what it was like being her on campus that day because everybody knew exactly who she was. She looks just like him. So
Shout out to Charlie Strong. He's over at University of Miami now.
he's a great
So
guy. So always want what's best for him. Wasn't the right fit at Texas, but great guy, great character, and always his daughter was also great. So best of wishes to them.
best of wishes.
But a
Well,
sad
Amanda,
Texas fan.
you deserve a winning product. We deserve a winning product. I think it's time we've paid our dues.
Yes.
We've suffered long enough. We believe in these young men in this program and everybody fueling it. So it's time for us to feel good. It's time for us to go into the state fair after OU and actually ready to spend, buy all the tickets and have a
Yes.
blast,
Yes.
like you're supposed to,
And
you
harass
know.
them after the game, neg them.
I'm ready.
I
I'm
already have my
ready.
friends I need to go, have conversations with after we win that game. I have 'em lined
Oh,
up.
Rent is due, you
Yes, it is.
guys. Amanda, thank you for joining me. Where can everybody find you?
They can find me on Twitter for the most part, just about every social media platform otherwise, but I'm probably most active on Twitter. It's Amanda M. Atwell. And that's you can Google my name and everything will pop up.
You are doing such a great job over there at Dave Campbell's Texas Football. I am very excited to see just all the things you guys cover, some of the stories, and the exposure that you guys are helping like I said, these kids, these coaches, these programs, people fulfilling their dreams, Texas high school football. So Amanda, thank you so much for joining Fanatic Perspective today. I hope to have you back maybe mid-season if we can catch you for a little bit, maybe some update and chat
Yeah,
up a little bit
hopefully
more.
we're on a win streak at that point.
I know we can have hey, look at us. Look at us.
We're halfway
You
to those
know?
8 wins.
Some people in the comments are gonna be like, she only picked 8 wins. What the heck? We were gonna win. We're going 11-1, Steve.
Yeah, you said that last season too, Steve. No,
Man,
it's normally like the Allen for that has a faceless pick. We're going 11-0. No, we're not. Let's be a realist here.
oh, it was fun, Amanda. Thank you for joining. Guys, make sure you also subscribe to this channel, help support the platform, help us grow. Hit that like button. Like I said, you know what to do. Required attendance. Also, shout out to busr.com/fanatic, the official sportsbook, official betting partner of Fanatic Perspective. Hit that promo code sports100FP. Take advantage of 100% free play match on all initial deposits in the first 24 hours. Thank you so much, BUSR. Thank you, Amanda. Guys, remember, for my Texas football fans out there, horns always up. Welcome.
Hook 'em.